Chancellor, can I ask, in a sense, why we're doing this? I can't remember any Chancellor who has done a big speech and press conference and so forth 3 weeks before a budget. What is it you're trying to achieve?
So I want to be honest with people, level with people about the challenges we face. This is a great country. It's a country that businesses are queuing up to invest in. It's a country where other nations around the world are queuing up to do trade deals with us. But I think people recognise that the last few years our economy's been through the mill. We had austerity, then we had a botched Brexit, we had Liz Truss's mini budget, and then of course there's external events like the COVID pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, what I set out today is what will be the biggest part of the budget, which is the Office of Budget Responsibility's reassessment of productivity. Now, it sounds very technical, your view of total factor productivity, but it actually has real meaningful consequences for the economy and the public finances.
It's a problem for the country. Let's be absolutely straight. You are going to have to raise taxes.
Well, look, I think I was pretty clear today that the productivity downgrade, it's not that I accept that productivity has to be like that. I'm determined to defy those forecasts, but you can't just sideline a forecaster because, you know, we know what happens when you do that. That's what Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng did, and it caused absolute misery because interest rates went up, inflation went up, and ordinary working people paid the price for that. So
we have all been there before. We know that's a real problem. But the truth of the matter is you want to turn things around, you want to get productivity up, but in the short term at least, you have to raise taxes.
Well, I'm going to set out the individual tax policies and on spending as well at the budget. That's not what today was about.
I'm not asking about individual measures. I do understand that. I'm just asking overall in terms of borrowing and the macro picture, you have to raise taxes.
Well, I think I was pretty clear today that the circumstances that we had a year ago, they are different today because of this. And I've been clear, there's not going to be a return to austerity. We're not going to cut capital spending because that's what previous chancellors did, and that's why we have such weak productivity. And I'm not just going to borrow more. And so, of course, we are rooting out waste and inefficiencies in public spending. But of course, we are going to look at taxes as well. But I'll set all that out. What I wanted people to know today is the principles that will guide me when I make those decisions. Getting NHS waiting lists down, getting the cost of living down, and getting our national debt down. Those are my priorities. And I hope people will judge me against those at the budget in a few weeks' time.
In terms of principles, because that's absolutely crucial, I've noticed a big change in language. You used to talk all the time about those with the broadest shoulders. And today you said, if we are to build the future of Britain together, we will all have to contribute to that effort. Each of us must do our bit. Can you decode that for me?
Well, I will set out the individual measures and you can judge me on those, but I'm a progressive. I believe those with the broadest shoulders should pay the most. I think you can judge me on my record, Andrew.
Of course.
Like the budget last year, we got rid of the non-dom tax, so you can no longer be a non-dom. There's no such thing now in the tax code. With taxes on VAT, business rates on private schools, taxes on private jets, increasing capital gains tax, getting rid of the carried interest loophole for private equity.
But now your language has changed. Now you're talking,
I wouldn't read too much into that.
Well,
to
you're
be
saying
honest,
each of us
Andrew.
must do our bit. If there was a more blunt way of saying I'm going to raise income tax, I can't think of it.
Well, look, I will do the individual measures, and that's not what today was about. That's not what I was trying to do today. But of course, I will want people, when they look at that analysis of the distributional impact of the budget, last year's and this year's, I want people to see that I am a Labour Chancellor, a progressive Chancellor, and that distribution analysis will back that up.
Last year, almost to the day, you said this: we are never going to have to do a budget like this again. This was a once in a parliament reset. What has changed in just a year?
Yeah, so look, that was a once in a parliament reset. When I became Chancellor, there was a black hole in the public finances. The reserve, which was supposed to be for genuine emergencies, was spent 4 times over just 3 months into the financial year. And that is what I was sat down and told by the most senior officials at the Treasury in my first weekend in the job. And so I had to fill that black hole. goal. Because
So this won't be as bad, if you like.
no, and it also is a very different circumstances. Last time I was, clearing up that fiscal mess. But last year I did a budget in good faith based on the productivity numbers produced by the Office of Budget Responsibility. A Chancellor can only do their budget based on the independent forecasters. And since then, they've done a reassessment and they'll set out why that is and why this was the time to do it and also the extent of that reassessment. But what that reassessment consists of is looking at data from the past and seeing whether it was stronger or weaker than what they forecast. And I think you can see the data for yourself that productivity has come in lower than they expected over the last few years. And they use that past data to predict the future. Now, we shouldn't be defined by our past. I believe that we can beat those forecasts. I'm determined to do so, but I have to prove that before I can bank on it. And that's why I always say, continue to say, my number one priority is to grow the economy with good jobs and productivity in all parts of the country. But we've got to deliver that growth. We've had the fastest growing economy in the G7 in the first half of this year, but growth is not yet strong enough. We need to double down on that with the planning reform, the regulatory reform and the pensions reform.
If you loaded taxes on business, you would kill any chance of getting that growth in the year ahead.
Well, taxes isn't the only thing that affects business sentiment and business investment. There was a lot of scare stories a year ago when we increased national insurance, and I recognise that was...
Employment has gone down, hasn't it? A lot of people have stopped hiring because of that.
Actually, employment this year in 2025 is 350,000 higher today than it was at the beginning of the year. Retail sales for the last 4 months have improved. They've surprised on the upside, and the IMF just last month revised up their forecast for growth for the UK this year and say we're going to be the second fastest growing economy in the G7 for this year as a whole. So I wouldn't believe all the doom and gloom. There's loads of brilliant stuff going on in our country. Businesses hiring people, businesses investing, and businesses from abroad choosing Britain as a place to invest. And the trade deals that we've done now means that you can produce stuff in Britain and sell it on the best terms all around the world.
What I don't want to do is to get into the silly game of where I ask you about lots of taxes and you say, Andrew, you're going to have to wait to the budget. So I'm not saying that.
Oh, good.
But I am saying that you and the Prime Minister made some very solemn promises to the British people at the time of the election. If, hypothetically, you break those promises, you will never get that trust back, will you?
I think people want to understand what we're doing and why. People voted Labour last year because they were sick to the back teeth of the previous government and their mismanagement and them putting party interest above the national interest. Now, I'm sure that I could fiddle the numbers and move things around to meet the letter of the rules, but not the spirit of them.
You could dodge through, but you're not going to dodge through.
You know what I could do, and it's what previous chancellors do. They say that big capital project, the nuclear power station, the Northern Powerhouse rail, the 1.5 million new homes.
Put
it back a couple of years. Massage the figures. Of course, you could do that. Chancellors have done it before. Do you know why we're in the mess we're in now? Because that is what they did. And I am not going to do it because one day I won't be in this office, Andrew. One day I won't be in this office. I won't be Chancellor anymore. And I want people to look back at what did Rachel achieve when she was Chancellor of the Exchequer. And I want to have left this country in a better state. And that is something, frankly, that the last two Chancellors haven't been able to say.
On that very theme, let me say something that interviewers don't normally say, which is that I think of all the bad choices that may be ahead of you in terms of taxes, actually raising income tax for everybody by a modest amount may be the least bad choice you could make. However, you did make that promise, as did Keir Starmer. So it's been suggested to me what you could do is you could say to the British people on Budget Day, look, things are really bad. The headwinds have been harder. The situation has been stronger, worse than I thought. Therefore, I have to raise income tax. But I promised you I wouldn't. So tomorrow, I'm going to resign as Chancellor of the Exchequer, having done the right thing. That would be I'm not going to behave like the last lot. I'm not going to play those games. I'm going to be honest and honourable.
And what do you think would happen in financial markets if I did that?
It depends who took over, I guess.
Oh, come on, Andrew. You know, look, I have been able to build a reputation
You'd have
that
done the
I can
right
be
thing.
trusted with the public finances. I've steered this country, our economy, through some challenging times the last 15 months. Increases in global tariffs, increases in volatility, increased tensions around the world, and yet our bond yields are lower than they were a few months ago and have outperformed our peers. The FTSE is close to record highs. Our economy in the first half of this year was the strongest growing in the G7. So I am not going to walk away because the situation is difficult. I was appointed as Chancellor to turn our economy around, and I am absolutely determined to finish that job.
So is the message to your critics, judge me in 3 years' time, judge me on the whole piece, the whole Parliament, and see what I have achieved?
Yes, but of course, people will judge me on my budget as well. And I hope that when they see the choices I make in that budget, that we have prioritised growth to get us out of the low productivity, low wage spiral that we risk falling into, that we've done that in a fair way, and that we're tackling those triple challenges of the cost of living, NHS waiting lists, and too high national debt. And I believe we can make progress in all of those areas despite the challenges that have come our way this last year.
You've got different audiences today. You've got the public, obviously, but you've also got the bond markets who have so far responded quite well to what you said this morning. But you've also got, you talk in your speech about politicians having to get the message as well. And I wonder if there's a message to your own backbenchers there who have refused to allow you to push down the welfare bill, which is running dangerously at the moment, and the bond markets are very worried about that. Are you saying to your backbenchers, you have to show discipline and you have to show loyalty in these very, very tough times on behalf of the whole people?
Well, I'm Chancellor in the world as it is, not in the world that I might like it to be. But we are all politicians and we are all citizens in the world as it is. And we are confronted with choices every single day. You choose one thing, it means you can't do another, and you can't get away from that. I'll make my choices in the budget, and myself and the Prime Minister and the government will make our choices. People don't just have to suck those up, absolutely not. People will make their own decisions about what they believe is right or wrong. But what we all have to face is that there are choices and there are consequences of all decisions. On welfare, I don't think there's a single Labour MP who thinks that the welfare system that we inherited from the Tories is working today. It's not working for the most sick and disabled. It's not working for those who could work if the proper support was available. It's certainly not working for young people, where 1 in 8 young people are not in education, employment or training. So it needs to be reformed. The lesson is that we need to take people with us on that journey, but the lesson is certainly not that we should give up on reform. That would be the wrong decision, wrong for people in receipt of benefits, wrong for taxpayers and wrong for our economy.
The bit of the whole welfare bill that seems to be increasing fastest is actually for pensioners. It's now £177 billion a year we're spending on pensioners, and it's gone up from about 2% of GDP in the 50s and 60s to north of 8% now. So it's growing very, very fast. Yesterday, very interesting, Reform said they would look again at the triple lock because it was becoming, as many economists say, completely unaffordable. But the Labour Party won't, the Tory Party won't. Isn't there a kind of conspiracy about this?
Well, we made a commitment to keep the triple lock for this Parliament, and we remain committed to that.
Is that wise?
Now, there is a Pensions Commission at the moment looking, for example, automatic enrolment into pensions. Many people are reliant on means-tested benefits in retirement because they haven't had the opportunity to save for their retirement during their working lives, and that's why automatic enrolment. It's also why the pensions reform, so that when people save for a pension they get a better return, is so important. And it's why successive governments have gradually lifted the state pension age to keep the system affordable. So all of those things are tools at our disposal, but the key thing is that more people in their working lives earn enough to be able to set something aside for the future, and when they do so, that money works well for them.
Over the next month, there is going to be a huge conversation, as you know, about trust and who can be trusted to do what. And we've been talking a bit about that. When it came to your own housing issue, you have been cleared by Laurie Magnus, but you didn't give the Prime Minister all the information he needed first time round, and he was clearly irritated by that. Do you regret that?
Well, look, there's been an exchange of letters between myself and the Prime Minister, and the independent ethics advisor has given his verdict, and I haven't really got much more to say than that. The estate agent has also put out a statement saying that, yeah, they had said they were going to get the licence and they didn't. That was an oversight on their part. I recognise, though, that the responsibility ultimately is on me to do that, and so I'm not putting any blame on them. I'm just saying what the facts of the case are.
And coming back one last time to the absolutely fundamental question about today, could you actually break a manifesto promise and keep the trust of the British people?
Well, it's up to the British people to decide. I'm not going to say what judgment they can or should take, but I think the British people are wise, and they consider things in the round. And they kicked out the last government because they made a mess of the economy and they put the political interest before the national interest. I could be one of those chancellors as well, but I want to be the chancellor that does the right thing by our country and leaves our economy in a better state in which I found it. And I believe that the choices that I will make on the 26th of November will fulfil that.
I think you have been as candid as you could possibly be under the circumstances. Chancellor, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Andrew.